Hi everybody, Jo here again. How you doing? Today I'm popping in to answer a question I've been asked by 2 or 3 of our lovely new friends and followers about building a scene. So what I thought I'd do today is just go through some hints and tips of how to create a nice little scene like this. Now I've pared it back, so we're going quite simplistic today. I'm only using 4 stamps. Now it's helpful to have a plan, a bit of a recipe, and then once you get that crafty mojo and you get into the swing of it, you can change it up, you can alter it to suit you. So that's the idea anyway. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start off with some multifarious card. Now this measures 6 1/4 inches by 4 1/4. And we're going to stamp our main focal point. Now, if you haven't got these stamps, maybe a different fairy, whatever your focal point's going to be, we're then going to add some of our landscaping. So you're going to need an acetate circle mask and some mini hill masks, or the hill masks. And then we're going to stamp the foliage. Now, when I start off, the fairy I'm using here is Eden. And if you're not sure how she's going to look, just pop the acetate. It is so useful, look, for just checking how something's going to look. So I'm using 2 colours of VersaFine Clair ink, the Nocturne, and then the green I'm coming in with Shady Lane. Now again, when you're inking up, try not to lean your acrylic block on your multifarious card. 9 times out of 10 won't be a problem, but I have done it once when there was some ink on the bottom of here and it transferred onto there. So it's better to do lots of light taps. Now you can't see, but I'm standing up. So I'm going to hover and I want her there. So place her straight down. Now I keep the stamp on the card almost longer probably than I need to, but because I worry, she's a silhouette, she's a large stamp, so I want that ink to soak into that card. So I tend to give a good stamp and then a bit of an extra oomph and then peel it up and you get that, and there we go. That will be fine. So what I'm going to do now is bring in Pippin, one of our lovely mini stamps, and it's amazing how much you can do with the mini stamps. So I'm just going to pop him there so it looks like she's giving him a nice pat. He's come for a pat or maybe some treats. And again, I'm just going to let that ink soak in and then lift up. And again, I love that noise. So what I'm going to do now is add some sky. So I've got blue atoll. So now we're moving to the elements. These are dye-based. They react with water. This is a permanent ink, so these will blend well and are great for backgrounds. And I'm going to start with the sky. So I'm going to get the smallest of my little moon masks, my circle masks, and I'm going to have this up here. But I find it better to turn my work upside down. And I've got the number 9, the larger of our stencil brushes. And a little tip with your Elements ink pad, I would always blend it in the lid. This is a non-slip matte, so you don't need to hold your lid, look. Perfect. So it means this hand's free, so I can hold my moon mask. Now I'm gently just adding a little bit of ink, coming on the moon mask first. And if you notice, I'm starting at the bottom. For me, just works well starting further away. Now, because I've got most ink on, that will be darker. But that's fine because when I turn it round, that area will look like shadow. And I'm not going to come too far down. I'm just going to add some blue ink here. And roughly where my sky is, but I'm going to stop at that stage. The next bit for the landscape, I find it easy to turn my work this way. So we're going to come in with olive now, which is a lovely green, and I have 1 brush for my blue inks, and this is my green brush, look. Mini hill masks, there are 3, so we're going for the flatter one. And I'm going to pop this at their feet. Look, we're going to ground them. And if you hold it here, and again, ink in the lid, And then I'm just going to start underneath. I want it darkest underneath where they are. It'll just help to look like shadow. And then straight across. If I want to see how much colour I've got, I can lift up, look, keeping my hand here. Oh yes, I like that. So I'll stop with that. So now I'm going to put a hill. When you come to put your hills, be careful, just look where you're going. We don't want to chop our pippin off at the neck, do we? So I think that would look nice just there in between there. So I'm going to hold that. Now this I want to be lighter, so I'm quite gingerly, I'm holding, look, and it's more of a tickle. And when I come in, I don't go right down to here. I quite like it with a little bit of a whiter, almost looks a bit more ethereal. And again, when I go round my focal point, I tend to leave a little bit of white area. It makes this easier and quicker, but also it makes them almost look like it's highlighted. Again, makes pippin look a bit ethereal. But I want this green lighter than that just to help with perspective. So again, it's quicker for me because I'm leaving this a bit lighter and round my focal point is lighter. So if I turn that round to show you while I give it a wipe, it just starts to build up. Now when it comes to this hill, what looks really nice is if the hill mimics the shape of the moon. So we almost don't want a hill going up, we want a hill coming down. So if I put that there, look. So again, if I turn round, so I'm mimicking this shape here, and again, I've avoided her head. Now I'm not going to ink up, I'm going to see if I've got enough ink on my brush. I mean, I'm a definite one for using the ink that you've got on your brush, and that way I don't need to clean my brushes because I use absolutely every bit of ink that's on there. Again, I've left this bit white, left a bit of an area. Now let me just check we can, yeah, happy with that. So if I turn that round, look. So as you can see, I need a little bit more of the blue. So what I'm going to do is with my blue brush, look, and I've not added any more ink, I'm just going to fill in this gap here. And again, I'm not coming right down, I'm just going to leave that little bit of white. Just darken that bit round there. So you've built up, and that recipe, you can use that, you can change the colours, different, I mean, you could add different colours in here, browns, greens, oranges, but that's your basis for building up that basic scene. Now to help with the sky, it looks really nice if you add a little bit of pink or purple. So I'm coming in with my violet chalk. Now when I'm adding another colour, I always start in the corner, look, because if the colour was too deep, and then once I've got some ink off, I'm just going to come across. Now my ink pads are well used ink pads, so they are quite pale. If yours is a new ink pad, you need to blend it well in the lid and be very gentle with this because you don't want too much colour. You just want that nice light purple in that sky. And it just adds, and I'm hoping the camera can pick up on that, just adds, it's a lovely little thing to do. So there you've built up that lovely scene. So now we can add some foliage. Now for the foliage stamps, I've gone for a very useful one, and it's called the Woodland Ferns. And a little tip, what we're going to do here, if you've only got a couple of your VersaFine Clair, so Shady Lady, with the largest of the fern, so there's 2 on the set. So what's useful for this is if we stamp the larger one in the green ink and try and clump them and alter the direction, look, they will look more natural. And if you notice, I'm doing first and second generation. So first, where we've inked up. Second, we're not adding any more ink, so it'll be lighter. And again, this will help give perspective. It's such an easy way to add perspective. And what looks nice is when you've inked up in the green, to come in and use that black. So with the black, look, if I come in and just do some first, second and third, because we've got black stamp in there, to bring in some black here, it brings it all together and it looks a lovely cohesive design. But also the black stamping comes to the foreground, and that green you're creating perspective because you've got the black stamping at the front, then the dark green is almost the next layer back, and the light green, that second and third generation, is further away. So you've really created some lovely perspective in your design. And again, it didn't take a lot, just a couple of different inks. So to mirror that, we're going to come in with another lovely stamp, and this is called the Maple Leaf. So at the top, what we're going to do to mirror the bottom, we're going to stamp it in the two colours. And so we'll start off with the green. And so what I'm going to do is with the green, I'm going to stamp it once in the middle. And again, it's a silhouette, so give it time and then lift it off. And then stamp down this side, lift it off. And finally, once more in the green, down this side. So now we'll come in with the black. And I just think for something that's so simple, but it's so effective. So I'm just going for this gap here, look. And then I'm just going to do a little bit of second generation there. So if I lift that up to show you, can you see it looks like we've got the black leaves in front, and then behind we've got the green, and then in the distance we've got that. And I just think that just such, you can bring the stamping further down here if you wish. I'm going to stop there. So that's all my stamping finished. And I'm going to add some colour now. Now I find if I just use a piece of kitchen roll to lean on, again, just in case I got any ink on here. Now I'm using the Mondelez colouring pencils. Now these are water reactive, but I'm just going to use them as normal colouring pencils today. And I'm going to come in with the darker colour, and I'm just going to colour her wings in. Now at this point it's up to you whether you want to use pencils, pens, gel pens. What I tend to do as I colour, I just go over the colour before and just sort of blend a little. And I've just gone for sort of purples and blues, just to sort of tone in with the colour that's in the sky. So what I'm going to do now is with this mid-purpley colour, just blend over that blue. So I've got a nice mix of those colours, so you can still see the blue, but they tone well. There's not a sudden abrupt line between the purple and the blue. And then I just want to add a little bit of highlight now. So you can use normal pencils for this, but I'm going to use pastel pencils. As you can see, look, my white pastel pencil is my most used pastel. And all I'm going to do is add a little bit of highlight. So I'm just going to put it on her headdress here. And again, pastel, if I was doing a large area, a whole piece in pastel, I would need a spray fixative. But because I'm just adding highlights, I find just by smudging it with my hand, it'll be enough. So here, look, where I've got that, I can just make it look like highlight. I like the smudged effect, but as I say, it fixes it, so I don't need to worry. So his little nose, and Pippin, I like to just give him a little bit of shape, do his little white cotton tail, and a little bit on his nose and his ears. Now, while I've got my pastel pencils out, I'm going to use the black and add a little bit of shadowing. So just under here for Pippin, the moon's there, so it will be straight down. For our lovely fairy, she's at a bit of an angle, so I know the shadow would move that way. So you can use your fingers for the black, but I find I get it everywhere. So this is just a biodegradable cotton bud. As I say, you can use your fingers, but I'm trying to keep mine as clean as possible, only because I'm liable to add it everywhere. So we've instantly got that shadow. The other way of adding highlights, this is the Signo Uniball white pen. It might be you want to add highlights with this look. So again, I could add some highlights on her wings, maybe just on her shoulder. Now, it might be like me, you like to actually add both. I like to use the Signo and the pastel, or it might be you just want to use one. Might be you use your watercolour pencils. Again, we're all different. Now, I want to add sort of a frame around the work. So I'm going to come in with dark denim. So any of your dark colours. If you haven't got a dark denim, you could add a dark green. So I tend to use, again, my kitchen roll. And I'm just going to come in. Now, my inks are well used, so I'm actually going to come straight from the ink pad. But I urge you, if the new ink pads, to blend in the lid. So all I'm going to do is start with the corners, look. When I'm happy with the corners, I then blend some ink along the bottom. And I have just a habit where I turn my work. So again, I'll get that ink on the corner and then blend a little bit up the side. Perfect. What I tend to do now is just darken the corners. And I would say I start off and say I'm going to make them equal, do the odd one, but I always end up doing all four again. So that was dark denim, a lovely colour. Now, I've got a fan brush and it's in my water pot. So all I'm going to do is gently tapping and add a little bit of water. Now, don't worry, the leaves, that ink won't move. Remember, that's a permanent ink. So that won't react with the water. The background ink, the elements, is dye-based and it is water reactive. So it will react. And a little tip, if you're not keen on that blending, this is a great way of hiding some lines. If you've got lines with your blending, and it happens to all of us at times, add some water splatters like this. Honestly, it's a great way of hiding things. I'll just give this a clean. So, because this is water reactive, as it dries, look, you get these little marks. And I just think that helps give a little bit of interest in the background. If you don't like the water splatters, you can leave it just as it is. Again, it's your design. Now, I tend to give mine a bit of a pat dry when I'm happy with how they've reacted. And this is one of those things, if you wanted to add more, you could. If you want to add some glitter, you could. But just as a basic design to give you an idea of how to build up, that little recipe for building up, that's how I would approach it. As I say, there's lots more things when you get more into it that you can add. You could add some stickles, some glitter. You could really go to town, add different stamps, make it a larger piece of artwork. And once you get that confidence in how to use your moon mask, build up that scenery, oh, you'll just fly. So thanks as always for popping in. Please take care of yourself and be kind to each other. I'll see you again soon. Love and hugs from me. Bye for now.